Welcome to episode 22 of PrimetimeUGC. We've got a jam-packed show this time. Not only do we have a new Foundry Essentials, but an interview with none other than JJ... What? What's going on?
I don't know. It's like our broadcast is being jammed from somewhere.
Can you boost the gain on it?
I'm trying, but there's a strong transmission bringing down our amplifier.
Boost it!
I can't!
Where's the override? The override! We've done it. We've broken through.
That little device is worth everyone we had to kill for it.
Now we have control of their airwaves. There's no stopping the Empire from spreading its word into this universe as well.
Get ready, all you miscreants out there. The Terran Empire has arrived.
All glory to the Imperium. The Ministry of Information has cleared the following for release to the conscripts and commanders of all Imperial forces. This broadcast is subsidized in part by the Daystrom Armaments Group, enforcing the Empire's will since 2268. The conquest of the Romulan people is nearing completion. The remainder of their race will soon be subject to Imperial will, and their labors shall soon be turned towards our glorious victory. Imperial intelligence has obtained copies of field reports from within the so-called Federation and Klingon empires. These reports include The Sword of the Kuvok Mach by K.R. Walcott, Repairing Utopia Planitia by Bruckner, The Rising Phoenix by H2O Rat, The Depths of Nukura Prime and the Bowels of Nukura Prime by P. Sutherland, apparently some kind of double agent. Perhaps one of these Undine we have reports on from spies. Additionally from the Empire are Silent Night by NX-89, Shipwrecked by Greg-247, and Order of Hovell by S.B. Kuto. Various information releases from Information Minister Brandflakes, Commodore Gecko, and Field Marshal Stahl, as well as several other Imperial officers, have been released since our last transmission. These are obtainable through normal means. And that is your information download.
Hey folks, I'm Cardinal Chulaski. Cardinal of what you say? I'm going to tell you. I'm with the religion that has the creation myth, the virgin birth, and the spirits that live on after they die. Yet we deny the possibility of life on other planets because it's just too unbelievable. Our God also bears a striking resemblance to Santa Claus, but that's not what I'm here to discuss. I just want to take up a few minutes of your time and exploit any guilt you may have hiding in that black, selfish heart of yours. I want to talk about feeding the harlots. That's right. Every year, these poor creatures go weeks or months at a time without putting a single thing in their mouths. Well, food, I mean. They need sustenance just like everyone else, and I'm here to ask you to donate. Just look at them. It's enough to make you throw up. We've also gone through great pains to have some flies brought in to enhance the effect, but that's another matter. Each year we lose hundreds of these poor, impoverished, hungry whores to the ravages of hunger and diseases. And I'm not talking about the common cold here. Quite frankly, there are some alien venereal diseases that make syphilis look like a mild case of acne. There are also some sexually transmitted monsters that can easily bitch-slap all the penicillin in the quadrant, if you take my meaning. Sure, now and then the Resistance stops by and gives us some of their table scraps. To be honest, those bastards aren't much better than the Empire when it comes to making any significant sacrifices. Personally, they're all bloodthirsty killers, and I'm not sure if we'd be better off with them in power, but that's an argument for another time. Right now, I'm asking you for anything you can spare to help fill the bellies of hungry strumpets throughout the known galaxy. For just Isix a day, or Quatlus, Ren, Durax, Lek, shit, we'll even take Dakari and Frank. But for just a pittance, we can ensure that you'll help to save one of these tainted tarts from a horrible fate. For a monthly donation of just, well, whatever, you can even sponsor a strumpet. That's right, you'll get an actual holographic representation of your Jezebel, complete with a detailed report on everything we feed your floozy. If she wolfs down a plate of rotting zabu meat, I promise you'll know about it. You can also track her progress. We'll implant a subdermal tracking device so that if she decides to go back into business, you'll get your cut. After all, why should you be donating your hard-earned money while she's out earning and not kicking up a percentage? So please, answer this call. These tramps need your kindness, your compassion, your cash. And I'm sure you won't mind me pocketing a few slips of latinum to cover the cost of these PSAs. We're in the 25th century now. We still can't make one of these things without running headlong into union bullshit. I'm Cardinal Chulaski, and my blind faith is insane.
Hello, Imperial soldiers. This is my introduction to the Foundry. I'm not really sure why I need to do this introduction. There are lots of officially and professionally made cryptic tutorials that you can watch if you really want to watch tutorials. Otherwise, you don't really have to watch tutorials because the Foundry is, well, it's incredibly intuitive and it's bug-free and it's easy to use, and if you can't figure something out, then you're probably a prime candidate for the Empire's euthanasia program. But orders are orders, so I'm going to make a tutorial and I'm going to show you how to make a quality Foundry mission for Imperial soldiers to train. The first step when you get into the Foundry is name your mission, and I recommend naming it so that it's very easy to understand what it is for. So let's call it Farms 101 B7. I don't know what the B7's for, but I'm just going to put it in there. In the description, you need to tell the player exactly what they're going to get from your mission and any potential ways that they can exploit the mission to get more loot. Okay, so once that's done, then you go to the map section and you want to create a map. Now, don't worry about making a custom map. That's stupid. Use a pre-made map, and it doesn't matter which one, just pick one. And you need a map name. Okay, so we need a map name. Let's just call it Space Wars. And once we have our Space Wars, we'll zoom out because we gotta find the spawn point. And the spawn point is very important. Let's take the spawn point and let's move it away from any kind of junk that's in the map because the junk can get in the way of farming. And now that we have the spawn point, let's go to details, and this is the most important detail in the Foundry. It's something that you really need to use. If you don't use it, it's criminal. It's called Static Interference 01. And Static Interference 01 creates a volume effect that adds static to your screen and minimap. This volume drops the player's shields and lowers perception. Now what's important about that is you need to position it where the static effect drops the shields of enemy ships, but it doesn't affect the player's spawn point. So therefore the player will have their shields, but the enemies that you put in the static field won't have their shields. This allows for effective loot farming. And once you do that, you should also put in a fence, because you want to let the player know where the static field ends and where it begins. So let's search for a satellite, doesn't matter which one, and we'll create a fence. Because once we have a fence, then the player knows that don't cross that point. Okay, so once we have the fence in, we should put in enemies. The important thing about enemies is that you need to stick with bosses, because the lower level mobs, they don't drop loot, so they're worthless. But the captain level mobs, well, they drop the greens and the blues. So you need to just use captain level mobs as if they're fish in a barrel. So let's put in a bunch of captain level mobs. And it doesn't really matter where they go as long as they're behind the fence. And then we go to the storyboard. Now there's a bunch of junk over here that you don't need to use, like pop-up dialogues or reach markers. All you really need to worry about is to kill enemies. So let's put our space map in, and this guy will say something, and then we'll put in the kill enemies. And you want to put a bunch of these in because you want people to kill one after the other, because having too many might make the player die, and you don't want to make the player die, or you don't want to make the player actually fight anybody. You just want to make it where he's shooting fish in a barrel. So yeah, that's really all you need to do in order to make a quality Foundry mission. Again, don't worry about all this other stuff. If you're trying to tell a story, well, you're part of a bourgeois elite intelligentsia, and I would recommend you for extermination. The Foundry's not here to tell stupid stories, it's here to farm lots of loots. This is an MMO, and we're training Imperial soldiers, so don't try to tell a stupid story. Okay, that's my introduction to the Foundry. If you need any other help, you're probably stupid. Okay, long live the Empire.
Your loyalty may be required, but it is also appreciated. Long live the Emperor!
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello everyone, welcome to Showtime on Primetime. Tonight we're going to discuss the newest summer blockbuster film, Star Trek Into Darkness. Joining me in the studio tonight is none other than the opposite of me, Mirror Me. Hello movie fans. I'm here to keep this self-righteous blowhard in check. Not only does he approach things with optimism, he actually goes into the theater with no preconceptions. I also don't wear those ridiculous high heels to appear taller, but that's just me. I certainly do try to have an open mind, though, especially in the case of a Star Trek film. I have been a Star Trek fan almost my entire life. That being said, I'm particularly protective of Mr. Roddenberry's vision. Oh, please. Don't you think it's rather pretentious to assume you even know what that was? Have you ever even met the man? No, but I'm a Star Trek fan and can recite most all the episodes verbatim. I have also written several Star Trek stories myself, in the form of a screenplay and several Foundry missions in Star Trek Online. Not published in any manner, I suppose. Whether they're published or not has no bearing on my knowledge, intelligence, creativity, or talent. No, but if they aren't considered professional works included in Star Trek canon, let's just agree that, well, they don't mean much to anyone but you. All right, I'll stipulate to that, but let's please move on. Thank the Star Trek gods. I'll begin by saying that I love this film. I didn't go in thinking I'd like it this much. I found it to be more like the Star Trek I grew up with than the previous Abrams film. I hated it. Mr. Abrams spit all over the Star Trek we know and love, and some of his choices were just ridiculous. You do not take what has already been established in canon and become beloved by so many loyal fans and twist it around into a mediocre-tasting pretzel. Why? Because the fans love things just the way they were, that's why. We consider what Mr. Roddenberry did to be the most sacred and holy, not to be defiled by someone who prefers a competing franchise to our own most blessed Trekdom. I wasn't aware there was a contest going on, but even so, you're saying that you disliked his creative choices in the film? Disliked? No. Hated. I'm a true fan, and as a true Star Trek fan, I have absolutely no tolerance for changing what Roddenberry already did. And here I was, thinking Star Trek was about acceptance and tolerance. My mistake. Gene is probably spinning in his grave over this film. And what makes you think you can speak for him? If you know the material, you know the man. I've been a fan almost my entire life as well. And you think that he wouldn't have wanted this. Some young upstart making up distorted background for his most beloved characters. Absolutely not. This man Abrams has turned Star Trek into some action-adventure popcorn flick, making it sort of like Wagon Train to the Stars. I think the film was exactly that. It was Roddenberry's original intention that Star Trek be an action-adventure set in space. It's just an unforgiving fan base that has become inflexible and dismissive of anyone else's approach to these characters. If that's the case, who'd want to take the chance of making any new Star Trek in movies or on TV? I wouldn't want to incur the wrath of some of these so-called fans. Without a little more open-mindedness, Star Trek will cease to be. Anyone new to attempt it will automatically be hate. Wow, Star Trek fans who hate. So we have intolerance and hate. Sorry, doesn't sound very Trek to me. See what I mean? A blowhard. I still say Gene would not have wanted this. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, I suppose. That is true. Everyone is entitled. That doesn't mean that their opinions are sane, well-conceived, are equal in validity to others, or make any sense whatsoever, but they are, in fact, entitled. Well, I guess we can't agree on this particular subject. We don't have to. I know I'm right. After all, I'm on a podcast. I must be an authority. I see. Well, I guess the only thing that would settle this argument is if Gene Roddenberry himself were able to tell us what he thought about this very matter. We know that, sadly, could never happen. This is the Star Trek universe, you know. And I happen to have Gene right here to tell you in his own words. What are you, Woody Allen now?
I would have thought that having reached this point, it would be fun to go back to the years in which Kirk first got the Enterprise and met these people. Nothing would please me more than to have Star Trek come back years in the future and bright young people and new stars and so on really make it something and have them say, that's better than Roddenberry's. I'd like that.
Thanks, Gene. Whether or not anyone can ever do better than you did will always be a matter of preference, and I doubt anyone would ever be so bold as to make that statement. Someone did try to continue just as you described, and something tells me that if you were still flesh and blood, you would not approve of the way he's been treated for doing it, especially by those who claim to adhere to your ideals. It should be common sense to anyone who admires Mr. Roddenberry that he would not have appreciated any other person being criticized so harshly while invoking his name to do it. Even I must agree to that. So, all that being said, go see Star Trek Into Darkness. Judge for yourself whether it was worth both your time and the price of admission. But before you make up your mind, ask yourself, am I disliking this film because it isn't the original series, or because it was really an inferior film compared with any of the others? Then remember that most of Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise were all post-Roddenberry productions. There was room in fans' hearts for those creative individuals. Why not for Mr. Abrams? Someone has to make new Star Trek, and at the moment, he seems to be the one with the job. A job that, as of late, I wouldn't want. Because who wants to be hated? Good night, everyone.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
That subspace discriminator should filter out the signal and give us back control.
Good. That was disturbing.
Hey, wasn't that the guy that killed me back in episode 10? Wait a minute. That never happened to me. How do I even know that? That was a dream sequence of yours, right? Right? Oh no. This means we're getting another visit from Temporal Investigations again, doesn't it?
Good night, everybody. Dennis to EMH.
Please state the nature of the medical emergency.
I think we're going to need to sedate Cast again.